Ultimatum. The artificial gravity in the Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Concordat felt too heavy to Captain Elena Reyes. Perhaps it was calibrated for the comfort of the Vexari, whose dense bone structure and muscular frames had evolved on a high-gravity world. Or perhaps it was simply the weight of the moment pressing down on her shoulders. The 7 tiers of the assembly hall rose around her in concentric rings, each filled with representatives from nearly 50 different species. Some floated in specially designed atmosphere pods. Others stood on multiple legs or coiled serpentine bodies around specialized perches. In the center of the highest tier sat the 5 Vexari elders, their slate-gray skin and 6-eyed faces impassive as they watched the human approach. Captain Elena Reyes announced the voice of the Concordat, an AI translator that spoke simultaneously in 50 languages. Representative of Earth and the human colonies, you may address the assembly. Elena stood tall in her midnight blue uniform adorned with silver piping, the colors of Earth Fleet. She had practiced this speech for weeks, but now, looking up at the assembled might of galactic civilization, she allowed herself to speak from the heart. For 73 years, humanity has been a member of the Galactic Concordat, she began, her voice steady. We joined with hopes of peaceful exchange, technological advancement, and mutual prosperity. The assembly hall remained silent. Most species here practiced a stillness during formal proceedings that humans found unnerving. Instead, Elena continued, we found restriction. We found limitation. We found that humans alone among Concordat species face unique constraints on our development. The first elder of the Vexari, Morax, leaned forward slightly. Human rights, the protections placed upon your species are for the welfare of all. Your kind's technological acceleration exceeds safe parameters. Your cultural propensity for rapid adaptation presents destabilizing factors. Elena nodded, as if conceding the point. So we've been told repeatedly, yet the restrictions placed on human colonies, limiting us to 5 systems while other junior members have dozens. The denial of FTL drive improvements our engineers developed. The requirements that all human ships carry Concordat observers. This is not protection, she said, her voice rising slightly. This is containment. A ripple moved through the assembly. The representative from Philaxia, a gaseous being contained in a crystalline vessel, floated down to Elena's level. Your species achieved faster than light travel mere decades after discovering nuclear fission, it said, voice bubbling through the translator. No other species has compressed technological development so drastically. The pace presents risks. To whom? Elena asked plainly. To the Concordat's control, or to the careful hierarchy the Vexari have maintained for 2,000 years. The assembly erupted into murmurs. The Vexari rarely face such direct challenge. The second elder raised a 6-fingered hand, and silence fell immediately. You were invited to address concerns, human rights, the second elder said, not to make accusations. Elena reached into a pocket and withdrew a small data crystal. She placed it on the floating platform before her. It projected a simple holographic message visible to all attendees. NOTIC of WITHDUR. Humanity. This is not an accusation. This is a notification, Elena said calmly. As of today, Earth and all human colonies officially withdraw from the Galactic Concordat. We will be removing our representatives, our ships, our technology, and our people from Concordat space within the next 30 days. The assembly hall exploded with noise. Some delegates rose from their seats. Others engaged emergency translators to confer with neighbors. The Vexari elders remained still, but their secondary eyes, used primarily for threat assessment, had widened visibly. No species has ever withdrawn from the Concordat, said the first elder, his voice amplified to cut through the chaos. Your civilization depends on Concordat trade routes, technology, and protection. This is emotional thinking typical of humans. Elena smiled slightly. Perhaps, but it is our decision to make. Either the Concordat grants humans equal status as a founding member with all associated rights, or in 30 days, we walk away. You cannot survive alone," called out the Direxian representative, a methane-breathing entity whose environmental suit hummed loudly. "Pirate factions will target unprotected human worlds. Your limited colonies cannot sustain your population. Then we will adapt," Elena replied simply, "as humans have always done." She touched a small device on her wrist that began pulsing with blue light, a signal being transmitted far beyond the assembly hall. Then she bowed slightly, a human gesture that had never been adopted in Concordat proceedings. "The 30-day clock begins now," she said. "We hope to hear the Concordat's decision soon." As she turned to leave, the first elder spoke again. "Human rise, this session is not adjourned." Elena paused but didn't turn back. "For humanity, it is." The doors sealed behind her with a hiss as she left the assembly hall. Only when she was alone in the corridor did Elena allow herself a moment of tension release. She leaned against the wall, closed her eyes, and took 3 deep breaths. When she opened them again, her second-in-command, Commander Takashi, stood waiting. "Signal transmitted?" she asked. Takashi nodded. "Operation Independence is active. All human outposts, ships, and colonies have received the go code." And their responses? "All green, Captain. They're ready. They've been ready for years." Beyond the gleaming spires of the Concordat capital, in the void of space, a massive fleet of Earth vessels had already begun to move. Not just military craft, but enormous colony ships, mining platforms, research vessels, all heading out of Concordat-controlled space. The withdrawal had begun. For 3 weeks, the Concordat waited for humans to reconsider. They waited for Earth's economy to collapse without access to galactic trade networks. They waited for pirates to target vulnerable human settlements. They waited for the inevitable return of the species they viewed as impulsive and immature. They waited in vain. Admiral Diane Chen stood on the command deck of the EFS's Determination, Earth's newest flagship. The massive viewscreen showed hundreds of human vessels moving in precise formation. Some transported families from the outer settlements. Others carried mining equipment and manufacturing facilities. All were heading toward a designated sector of space, far beyond Concordat sensors. "Status report," Chen ordered, her voice crisp in the quiet efficiency of the bridge. "New Australia colony evacuation complete," Admiral, reported Lieutenant Commander Singh. "Last transports have cleared the system." Chen nodded. "And the Protean mining operation?" "Shut down and equipment retrieved at 93% capacity," Singh replied. "Ahead of schedule." Chen allowed herself a small smile. The Concordat had expected disorganization. They had expected desperation. They had not anticipated this, a withdrawal so meticulously orchestrated that it seemed humans had been planning for years. Because they had. "Send the Phase 2 signal," Chen ordered. "All diplomatic personnel, all merchants, all researchers, everything comes home." Throughout Concordat space, human embassies closed their doors on the same day at the same hour. Human merchants completed their final transactions. Human scientists packed their laboratories. Human ships disappeared from the trade routes that had connected the galaxy for centuries. On the Concordat's central world, the elders convened an emergency session. "This display will end soon," the first elder told the gathered representatives. "Humans are emotional and impulsive. When they feel the economic pressure of isolation, they will return to negotiate more reasonable terms." The representative from Aquila, a water-dwelling species, made a trilling sound that translated as skepticism. "They seem remarkably prepared for an impulsive action. The human embassy on my world was completely vacated before we even received formal notice of their departure." "A bluff," said another elder dismissively. "Without our protection, pirates will seize their ships. Without our markets, their economy will fail. Without our technology, their colonies will struggle." Far from the Concordat's reach, Director Maya Patel stood in an enormous underground facility beneath Europa. Jupiter's ice-covered moon. Workers moved with practiced efficiency around her, activating machinery that had been constructed in secret over decades. Power levels at 100%, Director reported her assistant. All manufacturing arrays fully operational. Patil looked at the rows of advanced fabrication units stretching into the distance. Each one could produce in a day what would take a Concordat factory a month. Begin mass production, she ordered. Priority on the new drive systems and defensive platforms. On a nearby screen, a message flashed from Admiral Chen's fleet. ALO human borders sealed. Patil smiled. Now we show them what humans can really do. In his private chambers on the Concordat homeworld, First Elder Morax reviewed reports with growing concern. The human withdrawal had been too organized, too efficient. They were ready, Morax murmured to himself. They've been planning this for years. An aide entered, looking nervous. First Elder, we've lost all contact with human space. Our monitoring probes have gone silent. Send more, Morax ordered. We did. They vanish once they cross the border. Morax felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries, genuine surprise. Activate the long-range scanners, he ordered. I want to know what they're doing in there. The aide hesitated. We already tried. Something is blocking them. Technology we don't understand. For the first time, Morax wondered if the Concordat had made a terrible miscalculation. Perhaps humans hadn't been bluffing after all. Perhaps they had only been waiting for the right moment. Revelation. 1 year passed since humanity's departure from the Concordat. At first, most species barely noticed the absence. Humans had always been relegated to the periphery of galactic society, restricted and contained. The Concordat assured everyone that the galaxy would continue functioning as it had for thousands of years. They were wrong. On the trading world of Selmar, Merchant Calvor stood in his empty storefront. Once, it had been filled with customers seeking the small devices humans manufactured. Water purifiers that never failed, adaptive medical patches that worked on dozens of different biologies, compact power cells that lasted for decades. Now his shelves stood bare. The last human-made goods had sold months ago, and nothing had replaced them. When will new shipments arrive? Asked a customer, a six-limbed being from a heavy-gravity world. Calvor's compound eyes blinked sadly. They won't. The humans made these things. The humans are gone. Can't someone else make them? The Concordat says any species can replicate human technology. The Concordat is wrong. In the grand laboratories of the Concordat Science Division, the renowned researcher Silai stared at a malfunctioning machine. For generations, humans had maintained certain scientific equipment across Concordat space. Their hands were smaller, more dexterous than most species. Their minds understood certain mechanical principles intuitively. Can you repair it? Asked her supervisor. Silai touched the delicate components with her thick fingers and shook her head. No, we need humans for this. Nonsense. The Concordat says any species can perform what humans did. Silai looked up sharply. Then let the Concordat come fix it. At the borders of what was once human space, Concordat patrol ships drifted cautiously. Captain Drex of the Vigilant Observer watched his sensor screens with growing concern. Any response to our signals? He asked his communications officer. None, Captain. Just like the last 8 patrols. Drex frowned and stared at the emptiness ahead. Beyond that invisible boundary, human space had become a mystery. The Concordat's most sophisticated probes either stopped functioning or disappeared entirely after crossing. What about the long-range scans? His science officer looked troubled. We're detecting unusual energy readings, Captain. Massive power signatures, far larger than anything humans possessed a year ago. What are they doing in there? Drex whispered. In the Concordat Assembly Hall, First Elder Morax faced increasingly agitated representatives. 47 systems report critical failures in purification systems, said the delegate from Theros. Systems the humans use to maintain. My world's medical centers have lost functionality of half their diagnostic equipment, added another representative. Equipment only human hands could calibrate. Trade profits are down 31% across the galaxy, reported the Commerce Minister. It seems humans bought and sold more than we realized. Morax raised his hands for quiet. These are temporary setbacks. The Concordat has faced greater challenges in its long history. A new voice spoke from the back of the chamber. Have you? All eyes turned to Silai, the scientist who rarely attended political meetings. What do you mean? Morax asked. Silai stepped forward. In my research, I discovered something interesting. Humans solved problems differently than the rest of us. When faced with limitations, they didn't accept them. They found ways around them. Your point, scientist? Morax asked impatiently. My point is simple, Silai said. For 73 years, we were the limitation. We restricted them, contained them, held them back. She paused. Now we've removed that limitation. What do you think they're doing with their freedom? Silence fell over the chamber as her words sank in. Far beyond the Concordat's reach, on a newly established human outpost orbiting a red dwarf star, Director Patel looked out over a massive construction yard. Ships larger than anything the Concordat had ever built took shape under alien starlight. Phase 3 is complete, her assistant reported. Patel nodded. Then it's time to show the galaxy what humans can really do. The trading vessel Fortunate Exchange drifted through the darkness of space. Captain Merrill checked his navigation charts again. His ship had strayed dangerously close to the border of human space. We should turn back, his first mate Jurix suggested. Concordat patrols will fine us for being this close to the forbidden zone. Merrill's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, showing his disagreement. Concordat patrols avoid this area, and my contact says there's a trading post nearby, a place where we can get human goods. Jyrix's skin changed to a pale yellow, indicating fear. Illegal trading with humans. That's against Concordat law. So is letting my family starve, Merrill replied. My shipping business is failing without human trade. This is our last chance. A small light blinked on his console. Someone was signaling them from a nearby asteroid. Merrill smiled and adjusted course. The hidden trading post was built inside a hollow asteroid. As Merrill docked his ship, he saw dozens of other vessels from various Concordat worlds. Apparently, he wasn't the only one breaking the rules. Inside, the trading floor buzzed with activity. Species from across the galaxy haggled over rare goods, many clearly human-made. Merrill approached a stall where a human woman stood calmly observing the crowd. Are you Sarah? Merrill asked nervously. The human nodded. You must be Captain Merrill. Your friend said you needed medical supplies. Yes, for my colony world. Our systems are failing without humans to maintain them. I hear that a lot these days, Sarah said with a knowing smile. She pulled out a small box. Inside were medical patches, the kind humans used to supply to Concordat worlds. Merrill reached for them eagerly, then hesitated. These look different, more advanced. Sarah shrugged. Everything we make is more advanced now. These will work 20 times better than the old versions. As they completed their transaction, Merrill couldn't help asking, how are your people doing without Concordat support? Sarah laughed, a genuine, confident sound that surprised Merrill. Would you like to see? She led him to a small viewing room at the edge of the asteroid. Through a reinforced window, Merrill could see deep space and something that made his breath catch. A massive human ship moved silently through the darkness. It was at least 8 times larger than the biggest Concordat vessel, its design unlike anything Merrill had ever seen. Sleek, powerful, clearly built for both speed and strength. That's impossible, Merrill whispered. The Concordat said humans couldn't build ships that size, said your technology was too limited. The Concordat said a lot of things, Sarah replied calmly. But how? How did you advance so quickly? Sarah smiled again. Your Concordat kept telling us to slow down. So we did, until we didn't. When Concordat patrol ships stopped him at a checkpoint, Merrill knew he should remain silent. Trading with humans meant severe punishment, but the Concordat needed to know. "I saw them," he blurted to the patrol captain. "I saw what the humans have become." On the Concordat homeworld, First Elder Morax received Merrill's report with growing horror. The merchant's descriptions couldn't be accurate. Humans couldn't have advanced so far, so fast. "Bring this traitor to me," Morax ordered. "I must hear this directly." In his private chamber, Morax reviewed the latest scan data from the human border. The energy readings had grown stronger. Whatever the humans were building, it was getting bigger, and it was getting closer. Alarms blared throughout the Concordat's central manufacturing hub. Red emergency lights flashed as workers ran in panic. The main power core had failed, and backup systems were shutting down one by one. "How bad is it?" asked Governor Trell, the station's administrator. Chief Engineer Lorex looked grave. "Critical, Governor. The power matrix is collapsing. We've never seen a failure like this." The manufacturing hub supplied crucial technology to 50 Concordat worlds. Without it, life support systems would fail on hundreds of space stations. Medical equipment would stop working in thousands of hospitals. "Can you fix it?" Governor Trell asked. Lorex looked down. "No. The systems were designed by the Vexeri elders. We maintained them but never fully understood them." In the assembly hall, emergency meetings continued for 5 straight days. Representatives argued as reports of failures spread across Concordat space. Systems that had worked perfectly for centuries were suddenly breaking down. First Elder Morax finally raised his hand for silence. "We face an unprecedented crisis," he admitted. "Our experts cannot solve this alone." The representative from Aquila spoke up. "What are you suggesting, First Elder?" Morax closed all 6 of his eyes briefly, as if the words pained him. "We must contact the humans." The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Contact humans. The species they had dismissed. The species they had restricted and then lost. "They won't help us," said one representative. "Why would they?" "We must try," Morax replied, "or watch our civilization crumble." 3 days later, a small Concordat ship approached the border of human space. Instead of being disabled like previous vessels, it received coordinates for a meeting point. The Concordat delegates were shocked when they arrived. A massive space station floated before them, larger than any Concordat structure, gleaming with technology that seemed impossible. The human ship that escorted them to dock was sleek and powerful, humming with energy that Concordat sensors couldn't even identify. Captain Alina Reyes met the Concordat delegation in a large conference room. She wore the same midnight blue uniform from a year ago, but now it seemed like a different person wore it, confident, unhurried, powerful. "First Elder," she nodded. "It's been a while." Morax tried to maintain his dignity despite his desperation. "Captain Reyes, the Concordat faces a crisis. Systems across our space are failing. Systems upon which billions of lives depend." "I'm aware," Reyes replied calmly. "We request your assistance," Morax said, the words clearly difficult for him. Reyes studied the ancient alien for a long moment. "The Concordat restricted us, limited us, and dismissed us when we asked for equality. Now you want our help." "Lives are at stake," Morax said. "Billions could die if critical systems fail completely." Reyes nodded. "Humans value life. First Elder, we will help." Relief spread through the Concordat delegation, but Reyes raised her hand. "However, we have terms." She activated a holographic display showing documented evidence. Ancient records, technical schematics, historical archives. For 2,000 years, the Vexeri have been modifying galactic technology, deliberately limiting its capabilities while presenting it as the pinnacle of achievement. The Concordat delegates stared in shock as the evidence mounted. Technical schematics showed how critical systems had been engineered with deliberate weaknesses. Historical records revealed how species that developed too quickly were either restricted, like humans, or sabotaged from within. "You've been lying to the galaxy," Ray said, "not protecting civilizations, but controlling them." Morax's secondary eyes narrowed to slits. "These are fabrications. They're your own records," Rise replied, "from your secure archives. Archives we accessed while helping with your previous technical failures." She gestured, and the doors opened. Behind her stood representatives from a dozen different Concordat species, many from worlds that had suffered most when human technology was withdrawn. "We've shown them the truth," Rise said simply. "And now we offer a choice." 1 year later, Captain Alina Reyes returned to the Grand Assembly Hall. But this time, it wasn't called the Concordat. The newly formed Galactic Alliance had replaced the old power structure. Representatives from 87 worlds, including former Concordat members, filled the chamber. The Vexari were present too, but no longer as rulers. They sat as equals among the species they had once controlled. "The transition has not been easy," Rise addressed the assembly. "Centuries of technological suppression can't be undone overnight. But working together, we've stabilized critical systems across former Concordat space." On screens around the chamber, images showed human engineers working alongside alien technicians, upgrading systems that had been deliberately limited for generations. "Humanity didn't leave the Concordat to isolate ourselves," Rice continued. "We left to break free of artificial constraints, not just for ourselves, but for all species." She gestured to the diverse gathering. "The Galactic Alliance is founded on principles of technological sharing, equal representation, and mutual advancement. No species will be held back. No civilization will be stunted for the benefit of others." As she concluded her address, Rise looked directly at the Vexari delegation. "Even those who once sought to control us are welcome as equals. The galaxy is vast enough for all our ambitions." The assembly erupted into approving sounds, a cacophony of different species expressing support in their own ways. And far beyond Alliance space, human exploration ships ventured into regions the Concordat had declared off-limits for millennia. There, they found wonders the Vexari had kept hidden, and challenges that would require the combined ingenuity of all galactic species to overcome. The stars no longer watched in fear. They watched in anticipation of what might come next.